A French exit is if you attend a party and then you leave the party without saying goodbye. This is called a French exit. The French call this an Irish goodbye.
Yeah. And don't even get into like what the Germans call it, right?
Yeah. But anyway, I myself performed a French exit, which I'm a big fan of this practice. I think everybody should do it. And I did it in a party in Portland, Oregon, where I live. And the next day, my friend Eric called me and criticized me for my French exit. And I was looking for a title at that same time, so I credit Eric with giving me the title of the book.
To the Harbor Grace excursion with the voice to have.
Books really saved my life.
I had read when you sort of the inciting incident or the moment for the Sisters Brothers that that crystallized that for you was some sort of yard sale where you found this book.
Yeah.
That was set, I guess, in the Old West and the Oregon Trail. Was there something like that for French Exit?
No, it was more roundabout with this book. It was I wanted to write something like a contemporary story, not necessarily cutting edge, obviously, but I had grown tired of the antique vernacular, with the last two books. And so I wanted it to be more up to date. And then I wanted to write about Paris, and I wanted to write about the relationship between a parent and a child after the child has grown up. And then the character of Frances it's a voice that's been kicking around for a few years in my head. So that was really the main thing, and then her coming into focus for me, and my realization that she was somebody who deserved a book, I guess. So anyway, there's a bunch of different things coming together to form the jumping off point.
Did you create a syllabus for yourself for the kind of mode that this is written in?
No, I was thinking of inspiration with books of mine. Oftentimes it's kind of vague, or I'll realize it after the fact what I was thinking of. But then with this book, I was thinking of Jane Bowles, and I was thinking of Yves Lenoir, and then I was thinking of John Cassavetes, the filmmaker.
Cassavetes.
Yeah.
What's the Cassavetes part of this? I mean, I have some idea, but...
Yeah, well, in certain of John Cassavetes' films, it's a group of adults, seemingly respectable adults, who become drunk to the point of it being quite ugly, and then they sort of devolve together.
Mm-hmm.
And
like husbands or something, right?
Yeah, and there's some of that going on in this book, so...
Okay, so Frances, where does that, you said she'd been kicking around for a while.
Yeah.
Do you have characters sort of kicking around, like are they at the bar waiting for their dinner table?
Something like that, actually. So yeah, I just had an idea for somebody like Frances, but it wasn't necessarily her. It's just sort of a vague description in my mind, a wealthy, sort of acid, brilliant, angry woman, in her 60s. And I wasn't certain if this was somebody that would deliver, You give each sort of character their audition time on stage, and then some deliver and some don't. Most don't.
Was she always the way into this particular story, or were there other characters?
I mean, it's her. To me, it's her book, and it's a book about her life experience, and I think her point of view is represented more clearly than any of the other characters in the book. So even though it's not a first-person book, in a way, she narrates it, or her emotions and her history narrates the book.
I guess again, backing up, I should see. Do you want to do the honors of just like what's the elevator pitch of what this book is before we kind of go? Like, how do you? I mean,
Yeah.
You could.
Elevator pitches are rough for me. It's sort of my Achilles heel. But basically, this is a story of the Price family. They're an American family, growing up in great wealth. And the wife/mother is Frances Price. She's in her 60s. In her youth, she'd been known for her great wit and beauty and style. She's now in her 60s, and the glamour has passed. She spends all her time with her adult son, Malcolm, who's not the most ambitious chap in the world, and essentially friendless, schlubby. But they're a united front, and they love each other deeply. And there's a tragedy that casts a shadow across the narrative, which is the death and the life even of the husband/father, Franklin Price. He was a highly successful and completely immoral litigator defending people like the pharmaceutical industries or gun lobbyists or whatever. He died of a massive heart attack, and the scandal is that Frances, upon finding her husband, did not call the authorities but went skiing. So that's sort of, she's known for that. She was known for one thing, now she's known for that. She's retreated into a very private life with Malcolm, they have a cat that Frances believes houses the spirit of the deceased husband.
Okay.
And his name is Small Frank.
And they are pretty much the only people in the history of the world who consider going to Paris to live in a luxury apartment kind of a hardship. They're begrudging
roughing it. Yeah. So yeah, their money runs out in the beginning of the book, and so it's the book is sort of about what happens when they can no longer live the way that they've been living all their lives, and they retreat to Paris to live in a borrowed apartment, and their lives take some turns. I'm not sure how to describe what happens in Paris, but it's some good and mostly bad, actually, mostly bad.
Well, there are sort of, it's like I was trying to, like there's maybe 3 major what you would call French exits that happen in the book, kind of like a Russian nesting doll within each other. But you did not come to that title as sort of the thinking about it ahead of time. It came afterwards?
Titles are difficult, just as names for characters are difficult for me, and it's happened several times where I've submitted a book without a title, or the title that I knew wouldn't necessarily be the title of the book. So I was calling this book Frances and Malcolm, which is a terrible title, and it's sort of a tradition, people naming films and books. Whenever you see a book and or a film and it's the name of the characters of the book or the film, it means that the person has given up and didn't have a title. And I think people know this. So I was trying to avoid it, but I thought I might be stuck with it. A French exit, I've learned that a lot of people don't know what a French exit is. I thought everyone in the world knew.
Does everyone know what it is?
A French exit is if you attend a party and then you leave the party without saying goodbye, this is called a French exit. The French call this an Irish goodbye.
Yeah. And don't even get into like what the Germans call it, right?
Yeah. But anyway, I myself performed a French exit, which I'm a big fan of this practice. I think everybody should do it. And I did it in a party in Portland, Oregon, where I live. And the next day, my friend Eric called me and criticized me for my French exit. And I was looking for a title at that same time, so I credit Eric with giving me the title of the book.
Okay. They're an unusual pairing in that they're sort of isolated. They make a choice to sort of be very close.
Yeah.
I sort of always say it's kind of Grey Gardens by way of Arrested Development or something.
That's good.
If you think of like
that's the elevator pitch.
There you go, right? Buy it. But with Malcolm, the adult son, the schlubby adult son, he seems isolated because he is sort of living in an arrested development because of his relationship with his mother.
Yeah.
Is it that isolates him, do you think, or is it their wealth that in a larger way
I think that they couldn't live the way they're living if they hadn't been raised in great wealth. And I think that they don't have to work, they don't have to engage with society, they don't have to they elect not to. I think that, I guess it's both things. They have a sort of a natural predilection to isolate, but their wealth allows them to do this. So it's I guess nature and nurture at the same time.
We slowly get introduced to, some are peripheral characters like Mr. Baker. As the news comes that the wealth is gone or going or very limited.
Yeah.
And you have a way of sort of isolating a physical characteristic for the characters that introduces them that is really cutting. And I wonder if that's because you don't spend a ton of time on the phone and you're watching where you go and looking at people. Because I noticed you have a flip phone.
Oh yeah.
Are you much more aware and sort of taking notes, as you go through the world and these little just descriptions?
Yeah. Well, I think the how brief the descriptions are.
I'm trying to find one.
Part of my I appreciate as a reader when somebody gets me into a room and explains everything, a sense of place and a sense of who is in the room, really quickly. And when an author can do it in a sentence or two, I appreciate that and I admire that. And it's something that I aspire to do. It's like time is an issue for me. Like I just want to I don't want to waste a lot of time explaining, like what the wallpaper looks like. I want you to be there as fast as possible. And so getting to know a person, oftentimes a physical characteristic will do that, just like a lone physical characteristic, and maybe a line or two, and you'll know exactly who this person is.
So for example, there's I call him the epaulette ambassador at the first party where they make their first French exit. He has men's teeth in a child's mouth.
Men's teeth in a child's mouth.
Or Dr. Touche is swarthy with the hands of a female adolescent.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's all you really need to know about that person. I mean,
Do you, because I'm curious how, like, do these, like, you sit down in your morning or your process and you know you have to come up with these, or are these ongoing things where you keep like a notebook? Or like, because I know your first book was Post-its that sort of helped you process.
I definitely take notes, and I study people in a way that I think is probably abnormal, and it's only related to my work, you know? Like, I didn't do it before I started writing, but then, you know, writing is voyeurism. And to be an apt voyeur, you need to pay close attention to what's going on around you. The things people say, what they don't say, the way they behave, when and how they lie, when and how they tell the truth. It's all these things. It's rooted in a deep fascination that I have with human nature and human beings and being alive. You know, it's like, so part of it is I think, just a natural curiosity about people, but then part of it is work-based.
Well, and also how people, the different cadence of how people speak, because there's a lot of you're really great at dialogue.
Thank you.
And each of them have kind of a different rhythm.
Yeah.
Distinct. How do you work that out? Because it's on the page. Do you actually read them aloud? I mean, I know you also work on screenplays, and you've worked on the screenplay, I think, for this one.
Yeah.
Is that something that you do to nail it?
With, I find that I read aloud when I finish a draft of a book, and this just, I started this with the first book and it just seemed correct, so I did it. But now I find, you know, I do it each time. When I finish a draft of the book, I read the whole book out loud to myself. And I don't record it or anything like that, but something occurs when you hear the words, and it's different than, because when you read, you hear it in your head, or I hear it in my head. It's like, but when you actually say the words aloud, so much of my writing is relating to the shape of the words, and the musicality of the sentences, the rhythm of the sentences, almost in the way like a lyricist writes. So the words I pick oftentimes aren't necessarily the best word to use, but the shape of the word is better or pleasing to me in some way.
And the shape of the sentence, and then the shape of the paragraph.
Yeah. Another thing, when I print out my work, the shape of the paragraphs, there's pleasing paragraph shapes and displeasing paragraph shapes.
Okay, are you someone who I mean, the Anansi people are here, I can ask them, but do you care about the font and the way it's typeset too, like on the page, and the widows and orphans, as they call them, kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely important to me. But like how much white space is there on the page is important. For me, I like quite a lot of white space, but then some of my favorite authors, is like Thomas Bernhard, is just a block. The whole book is one. There's no white space at all, which pleases me as a reader, but I would never do that as a writer. Okay. It's some weird personal preference that is rooted in I don't know what, but you know, I find it best not to question why, just to do what feels correct.
So they you know, it's sort of in the near past, or sort of relatively contemporary.
Yeah.
This particular book, they get on an ocean liner, which is, you know, unless you're taking the Queen Mary 2 as a special occasion, isn't something that typically people do. Why did you want to put them on that vessel in that way to get them to France?
I don't really know why. It just seemed best for me. It seemed a better platform for storytelling than, say, a plane. You know, I guess I was pleased by the idea that it would take days for them, and the translation from America to Europe, like that journey. I just didn't want it to end too quickly, and it is a nice backdrop for me for you know, a lot happens on this boat, and they meet a lot of people, and you learn a lot about the characters, and then just about the universe of the book, the types of people that populate this book.
And the way that Frances reacts to the new people she meets, like the captain, for example.
Yeah. So it's a telling segment, and I don't think it would have been the same if it was on a plane. And then also, I think this is where Waugh comes in. I was thinking, I had a sort of old-fashioned hat on, even though it is, you know, contemporary story. They're paying in euros, and there's references to like Nike at one point. I remember there's a Nike half shirt in there somewhere. So it is contemporary story, but I was looking back a lot, and I tried to write scenes with them on their phones and references to the internet, but ultimately it didn't seem correct, and I just didn't want those things in this book.
Well, the sort of tagline for the book is that it's a tragedy of manners. What does that mean? What does that mean? And when did you know that that's kind of what you were writing? But what does that mean to you? Like,
Well, I set out to write a comedy of manners. the sort of traditional comedy of manners. And I think it is really ultimately a comedy of manners. But the book kind of takes a downer turn at the end, and it just seems...
Upturn, actually. Well, no.
It's up for the reader to decide. But to me, it goes a little bit dark at the end, and I thought this is no longer a comedy of manners. But so I started calling it a tragedy of manners, but that is, of course, a comedic phrase. So it's a comedy of manners, no matter what I say.
Well, it's champagne with arsenic. Maybe a little bit.
Yeah, that sounds good. You're good at this.
But it's so that because people think, it's just going to be sort of flighty and silly, and then you realize that it's this means of it's dark but just really mournful. There's a real mournful quality that all of the characters have in different kinds of ways.
Yeah, I think a through line. When reviewers look at my books as like a body of work, they say that each book is very different, or it's very common for them to say that. They don't all say that. And I don't really necessarily agree with that. I think that the through line is the way that the humor masks pain and unhappiness. So all of my books, I think, are fairly melancholic, but you can't really tell, or you don't notice it, because of the relentless...
the production design around
the production design, yeah. I mean, but it's like humor is a nice way. It's a nice way to share bad news with humor, and I just seem to want to do it each time.
And there is in reviewers and in interviews, there's a preoccupation with talking about genre and this whole idea that you take a genre and you kick it in the teeth, and you've done a few things that people could, the 4 different books that could be classified, subclassified very differently.
Yeah.
Do you find that you're curious and you want to metabolize sort of the trappings of a certain genre or the mode, and then you're done with it? You're not interested in doing it again?
I can't imagine that I would do something again, but then at a certain point, that might seem like a good idea because it's a bad idea, if you know what I mean. In much in the same way that writing a Western seemed like a bad idea. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do it.
It seemed like a bad idea because you felt the characters would
It seemed
be
like a bad
shallow,
idea
or?
because I had aspirations as a literary writer, and Western fiction is often thought of as decidedly not literary. So, but this was an appeal to me. It was appealing to me. Yeah.
That the Sisters Brothers is a film now that's been out for some weeks, and there was a Times cover story about Audiard and how what is he going to do to the Western because he's French or Belgian, and it's such an American genre, and that got me thinking. I'm wondering, because this comedy of manners I associate with England and British writers, and you were recently in England for this, or have you been? So do you find the French Exit's being received differently by readers in England than in North America?
My British editor's here,
Oh.
but I don't want to. People like it over there, right? It's doing okay. They love it. Yeah, they love it. Yeah. Thank you, Alexa. I think that maybe my take on it in terms of the way sort of like John Q. Public is reading it here and there is it probably just seems more familiar there. Mm-hmm. I think maybe this is more like, for an American or a Canadian, maybe sort of like stumbling across Monty Python on the television. It's like it's hopefully it works as comedy, but there's some sort of European flavor to it. And I was thinking very much, I think, especially after the fact, I've been reading, we were speaking earlier, reading all these British women from the 1950s, and they're doing exactly they did exactly what I was sort of aspiring to do with
and they
this
write
book.
about women. I mean, the lead characters are all in these satires are often women, like Elizabeth. What are some of the ones on the list that you've
Elizabeth
reading?
Taylor was a big discovery, not the actor. She wrote a book called Angel that I just love so much, and Barbara Pym is somebody I've been meaning to get to for so long, and it's excellent. Barbara Commons is somebody who deals really well with something that I like, which is sort of realist fiction alongside the supernatural occurrences. And the way these are put together is really pleasing to me. It's like there's zero fanfare. They're just sort of like suddenly somebody can levitate.
Which, there's I think it's not a spoiler to say there's a talking cat.
Yeah.
Which seems really plausible in the context of the book, actually.
I actually haven't worked out if the cat talks. The cat talks in the course of like a seance of sorts. And the spirit of the cat is in the room, and so it's sort of speaking from the candle. But we don't see the cat actually speaking elsewhere.
So it may be telepathic with Francis
somehow
and
it's
Frank.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's telepathic. I mean, there's a sound, but the logistics of this scene I haven't really worked out in my mind.
Well, because I had this, I read sort of the comments on book Twitter and things, and there's a lot of people who want to see these characters in particular again.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, maybe you could do a kid's book about the cat.
Yeah.
The cat's adventures in Paris, because he kind of goes off and before he has the bad adventures in Paris.
Yeah.
When they first start.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you haven't done a kid's
children's book?
or
Yeah.
YA.
Yeah, I'm not against it, but I would only do it if it felt natural and I wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The cat tries to kill himself, and then he jumps off the Eiffel Tower, but he keeps landing on his feet because he's a cat, so he can't kill himself.
It's really, yeah. I mean, people are always interested in what you're reading. I'm interested in that you have a 12 or 13-year-old.
13, yeah.
And what are you hoping he will read? Because you grew up, in some way, the osmosis of whatever was on the shelves in your house. What are you hoping that he'll kind of absorb?
Well, one of the jokes he doesn't read. He's not reading.
Oh.
And one of the jokes we have is because in my house there's records and books, and I keep saying, someday all this will be yours. And he's just like, he doesn't want either of these things. But I'm praying, hoping against hope, that he'll pick it up at some point. And I know that he will, because he's too smart to not read fiction. I think he is being contrary, which is healthy. And you're supposed to rebel against your parents. And so I told him that I know what you're doing, and I respect it, but you're shooting yourself in the foot.
That, right.
And I hope that you get over this sooner rather than later. He's reading actually French Exit for his English class. His English teacher, I think, wanted him to read it and just sort of weigh in on it. So I gave him a copy, and he's reading it, and I'm kind of hovering, and how's it going?
That's such an odd thing, because you dedicated Under Majordomo Minor to him, right? And so, because that's, to me, would be the more natural thing. It's sort of an adventure story.
Yeah, but there's an orgy in that one.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So
but he's
really
12, 13.
He's 13. Yeah, he probably watches them all the time on his phone. But anyway, I couldn't help but ask, so you're reading French Exit? Yeah, I'm reading it. Well, what do you think of it, I want him to like it. I want him to be proud of me, And he said, well, it's good. It's a good book. And I said, okay. And he says, you describe things too much. Somebody can't just cross the street. You got to describe the weather and what they're wearing. And the car is going by. He's like, just let him cross the street. So he thinks it's too much fluff for him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which, I'm curious, what happens to do you get a lot of, does the manuscript undergo a lot of changes when you get it back from the people in the audience who are your editors?
Yeah, I've been working for the last little while. Usually me and US, UK, and Canada will sort of come together, and we're all sort of just discussing what can improve the book. Mm-hmm. Usually by the time I hand in a book, it's fairly shipshape. Okay. But I'm always amazed at all the mistakes I didn't see and how much better it can be. And my editors are very talented, so I love giving it. Some people dislike the editorial process, but I really like it because the goal is always just to improve the manuscript, and you have these brilliant minds that are working on your behalf, and I sound like such a kiss-ass, I know.
Yeah, no, it's...
But it's true, I enjoy it,
Did that generate any major changes from, I think in the previous novel, there was, the love interest was pregnant.
Right.
And then she was, and then you changed that. Did something substantial change here from that process at all?
I think by the time I handed it in, it was more or less what it's like now, but I'm trying to remember if there's any really big changes. I can't quite recall.
So you have this, the page that you had in the last book acknowledging some of the authors that you leaned on for the book. You don't have that here.
Yeah.
But you do have an epigraph of Oscar Levant.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what specifically why that's the epigraph for the book. Oscar Levant is this...
how to describe Oscar Levant?
He was a virtuoso composer and an actor he's in An American in Paris and The Bandwagon, kind of quippy.
Right.
But sort of an interesting...
He was an infamous neurotic. He was best friends with Harpo Marx.
Or that also.
He was known as a great wit, like a sort of Algonquin Round Table type of an individual. He was institutionalized several times, terrible drug addict, just a Renaissance man, I guess you'd say. But an interesting person, and he wrote several autobiographies. One of them's called A Smattering of Ignorance. One of them, anyway, I was reading one of his autobiographical books.
Okay.
Yeah, and the line, just to me, his tone, the way he was, it fits in the world of this book somehow. And then the line, which is not a remarkable line.
No, and I'm fool me. I watched a little bit of all of his movies in the hopes of finding
no.
the context was. I didn't read the memoir, but the line is.
Oh, it's
the Unconquerable
Past. So this is a book about a complex past of the protagonists, and it just seemed fitting in some way. But I also like the idea of people not knowing who Oscar Levant was and then looking it up, because I think he's somebody who I would like it if he had a little bit more attention.
Do movies also kind of inform what you're
Yeah, I mean, not just Cassavetes, but Sisters Brothers wouldn't have existed if I hadn't watched all those spaghetti westerns. And then I think my detractors will say that my books read like screenplays, and this is meant to be like
an insult,
an
I
insult.
guess? Yeah.
But I don't take it, I refuse to take it as an insult, because I know how hard it is to write screenplays, A, and then B, if my work reads, if it conjures visuals, then I feel like I've succeeded. So I'm happy that if it seems like a film, then that's fine by me.
Do you play the casting game even when it hasn't been optioned necessarily? Like,
no, but we're playing the casting game now because we're trying to make it into a movie.
Do you have some thoughts on who would be?
Yeah, but
I do.
I shouldn't say, because I'm trying to get real actors to do it. So if they see an interview of me naming other actors, then it's not going to help me. So you can say as many as you want.
Well, like Kristen Scott Thomas as
would
the
be great.
as the mom.
Would be great.
And Paul Dano as the son, maybe.
Also would be great.
So people who've read it are like, yes.
Yeah.
Everyone always says Meryl Streep, but like,
She
I
would
don't
be
see
great.
Meryl Streep. Oh, she'd be great. Okay.
Yeah. It would all be great. All of them. All actors.
Well, now that he's out in the world, I mean, you have actually a couple of your characters are embodied by actors that we know, and I mean, I'm sure everyone wants to know what your thoughts were on the film.
So bad, I hate it. Just kidding.
Yeah, don't tell anybody though.
No,
Really.
I saw it once, and I was very. It's such a bizarre experience. It's such a strange thing, for so many reasons, and I wasn't displeased with the film, but it was difficult for me to take it all in. And I felt a little bit overwhelmed, and I didn't really walk away with a strong opinion of the film one way or the other. And then I digested it over a period of weeks, and I saw it at TIFF. First time I saw it was in LA. I saw it at TIFF, and it was in a theater filled with strangers, and the way you're supposed to see a film. And I all the things that I'd sort of missed because I was too busy sort of marveling at it, that it existed. I think it's very well done. I think it's a really thoughtful and beautiful film, and I think the acting is superb, and that it looks great, and that the music's great. I think it's wonderful. I really like it.
And there's this through there that goes back to Kubrick with it, because the costume designer is, of course, Kubrick's main designer from all of his movies.
Yeah.
So you've got this, like, now you're 3 degrees away or something.
Yeah.
So
I
we were
met
talking
her.
about Kubrick back there. So
Yeah, I met her in Romania. They were shooting the San Francisco scenes in Romania. And,
of course. Like
yeah.
the Westerns are shot in Spain, right? Like the
Yeah.
desert scenes at the Sergio Leone compound.
Yeah, the exterior shots, it's the Pyrenees, and then they did all the set work in Romania. But I went there, and my first night there was 300 extras. It was really overwhelming to see all these people, and every person was wearing a unique handmade outfit. And it's just absurd, the level of work and the quality of the work that went into it. Every button, I was really studying all these unique individuals. It was really, just must have been a Herculean task. So who is responsible for the clothing? And I meet this woman and her whole crew, and she was so fascinating and charming, and she had done all the Kubrick films. She dressed in Clockwork Orange. She designed all those, and that was I think that was her first job. She just had been friends with Kubrick. And he said, "You've got a good sense of style. Do you want to do this movie, Clockwork Orange?" And that's what she did. I think she'd won like 5 Oscars or
She's
something.
insane. She did 8,000 hats for Barry Lyndon or whatever it is.
Yeah, she did Barry
and
Lyndon. Yeah,
So,
which is just the most amazing.
fun.
Anyway, so yeah, strange industry filled with bizarre, maniacal workaholics.
And yet you're in it because you did the screenplay for this pretty much before this was published, right? You'd already
did,
kind
yeah.
of done that.
Yeah.
That's just because you wanted the control back, or?
I prefer to have the control. I prefer to write the screenplay, yeah.
When you talk to readers about this book or other books, what is it that when you take a step back from your work, what is it that you learn about the books? Or what have you learned about this one in the 5 weeks you've been on the road?
Yeah. Well, I can't point to any one thing. The one thing I've learned in my years of publishing is that the reading experience is really particular to the individual. And I didn't really understand that reading a book was... When you write a book and you give it to a stranger, it becomes a collaboration. And I didn't really understand that as a reader. I didn't understand it until I started publishing. And I learned this because I meet people who tell me their take on the book as though it's the universal take, assuming I feel the same way as they do, which sometimes is true, but more often than not is not true. People fill in the blanks with their own life experience. People put so much of themselves into the reading experience, into reading a book. And the visuals they're formulating in their mind, relating to their own lives. I'm kind of rambling, but I really love this aspect of publishing, is meeting people and learning what they made of it.
The sort of afterlife that it has. Or...
Yeah. I think it's great. You know, it's not a passive... Reading can be passive depending on what you read, I suppose, but I think of reading as something that's very active. And when I meet people who are sort of embodying that, it makes me happy.
Well, recently, in reading reviews of this book and others, there's this tendency to talk about reading as active, but also that it's somehow a negative that reading is escapism. That the idea of a book that has some silliness in it, or that has scenes of kind of pure arch comedy, even if it's acid comedy, is somehow lesser than, like these dichotomies we make. Like with French Exit, there was some reviewers who really are straining to find, like, what is it you're saying about the world we live in right now? Yeah. And why can't a book just be that kind of pleasure?
Yeah, I'm not trying to say literally a thing.
Like, is it the 1%? Like, there was, there's lists. Is it something that, because it's Trump, and what are you trying to...
Yeah, and some people want it to be about that, and that's fine. But for me, it's not about that at all. It's just about the individuals that make up the universe of the book. It's a character study. All my work is the study of human behaviors, and that's all it is. And it doesn't mean anything.
I think my favorite character in the book is Madame Reynard. I mean, I love the principles, but there's something really poignant about her. Yeah. She's also a widow, and she's kind of the mirror of, in some ways, the opposite of Frances, because she sort of bears her heart on her sleeve. And at one point, it sort of walloped me because I wasn't expecting it at all, because she's this French widow. And they kind of do that thing that happens in rich people's lives where they entertain themselves with parlor games and things. And she starts reciting Emily Dickinson. Yeah. And so she starts reciting one specific one, and then you have before the coda, you have one of the other envelope poems. It was very unexpected for me in this context. What is Emily Dickinson to you, and why did you choose
Emily
that?
Dickinson is somebody that I came to pretty late, or I had read years and years ago but didn't really get it, or I didn't give it its proper due. But in the last couple of years, reading Emily Dickinson and coming to understand, what's so excellent about her work and her point of view, it summons a really particular feeling in me that nobody else really summons, and it's sort of a mixture of comfort and melancholy. Like there's something very comforting about Emily Dickinson to me, and yet I think it's a sense of her isolation or something. I'm not sure why it does this to me, but it's a feeling I can only take so much of. Like, I can't dive into. I have to read Emily Dickinson in short spurts because it makes me feel these, especially the melancholic part, deep enough that it makes me a little bit uncomfortable. But the comforting part is so nice too, and there's right before the coda, there's an Emily Dickinson bit of a poem, and I put that there because I wanted to comfort the reader. So for all I know, the reader doesn't feel the same way about Emily Dickinson as I do, but one hopes, So I put that there as sort of like a balm, B-A-L-M.
B-A-L-M. Yeah, because it does have a sort of sad ending. Did you wrestle with that without telling you what the ending is?
Yeah, that was the part of the book that I actually didn't particularly enjoy, and it was very difficult to get that scene right. And Yeah, it was a dirty work from time to time, a nasty business. But whatever serves the book.
I want to ask, because I know you are an avid reader of some of the New York Review book classics.
Yeah.
If you could pick, you've excavated the sort of Elizabeth Taylor and Barbara Pimm's for yourself. Is there a writer that you think is underappreciated that you'd love to sort of say, this is the book you're going to publish, NYRB Classics, and I want to write the intro?
I feel like they got all. There's one book called A Nest of Ninnies, and it's written by John Ashbery and James Schuyler, American poets. And it's very much a comedy of manners, written in the style almost of Jane Bowles, and it's about nothing. It's this group of upper middle class people in upstate New York, and they just have meal after meal after meal, and they travel, no story, and they just bicker and say, it's like right up my street. And I don't know why.
So they talk. They just talk
It's just
at each other.
mostly all dialogue. And we were talking about Ivy Compton Burnett. It's sort of in that style. And it's not available right now, I don't believe, and I don't understand why. I don't understand why New York Review of Books hasn't put it out. It's a really sort of unique document. And then that it was written by these two brilliant poets is also interesting that they collaborated on a novel. So yeah, Nest of Ninnies, I think, should be repressed.
Okay. I'd like to do sort of a little lightning round of either or, because I saw you did one for the Times Literary Supplement before we open it up to questions. So
It's either or?
It's one, one or the other, okay? So Ernst Lubitsch or Howard Hawks? Because it's, a screwball comedy, sort of.
I guess I would say Lubitsch.
Okay. Noel Coward or Oscar Wilde?
Noel Coward.
Jeeves or Wooster?
Jeeves.
Whit Stillman or John Cassavetes?
I like Whit Stillman, but I got to go with John Cassavetes.
Okay. And Charlie Sisters or Eli Sisters?
Eli Sisters.
Ah.
That's easy.
Okay.